Isaiah wondered if there might be more than one wolf out there. The howling was becoming more than a little unnerving, echoing closer and closer each time it cut the night air. He stopped, listening, concentrating, trying to hear past his heartbeat and breath for anything that would reveal his pursuer. But the fallen and falling snow was suffocating any sound that might have reached him. Black Betty had left his side 10 minutes earlier, circling back, searching for danger. His eyes scanned the woods, anticipating that she had not lost the pleasure of catching him by surprise and dumping him in the snow. But the patchwork of drifting flakes and white-coated trees vanished away into darkness, revealing no signs of her. Another howl, close and clear, sent a shiver through Isaiah. That fucking wolf was near. Isaiah pulled the Red Maiden's saber out and held tight to the leather grip. He turned south and picked up his pace. 50 yards on, the woods began to thin. Isaiah slowed his gait. He looked behind him, searching for the wolf, but if she was there, she was still invisible among the trees. When he turned back, he saw a horse and rider coming down the track toward him. Isaiah slipped behind a beech tree and ducked down. He slid to the edge of the tree and peered out. The Red Maiden rode Joshua at a walk along the path. Isaiah saw her looking left and right, scanning the woods as she went. She passed his hide and continued another 10 paces, then she stopped, turning in the saddle, looking back, staring right at the tree Isaiah was hidden behind. Fuck, Isaiah thought. Gunhilda turned Joshua's head and brought him back around. She gave a gentle kick to his flanks and he began to sidle toward Isaiah's hiding place. Isaiah stood the saber in the ground and carefully unslung the Mauser. Suddenly, Gunhilda stiffened, almost rising up out of her seat, flinching sharply, as if struck by a javelin. Then Leonie's body went limp and slid from the saddle, coming off fast, landing hard and awkward on the ground. Joshua stopped. Isaiah's breath caught. There were two possibilities. This woman was playing possum and would be on her feet, steel in his belly the second he revealed himself, or the body had given up the ghost for now. Isaiah played the rifle sight through the trees, looking for the wolf. No sign. He glanced back at the Red Maiden, half expecting to see her standing and running toward him, but she did not move. The war horse stood over her. Fuck it, Isaiah said. He put the saber in his belt and took a bead on the fallen woman with the Mauser, easing out from behind the tree and making his way toward her, ready to put a bullet in her head. She lay still, but Isaiah felt more as though he was walking toward a coiled cottonmouth snake than a dead body. Joshua raised his head as Isaiah approached. Isaiah lifted his left hand, palm open. He reached towards Joshua's reins. He saw steam blow out of Joshua's nostrils. His hand was inches from the reins. A howl split the night. Joshua reared up and kicked his front hooves toward Isaiah, trying to cave in his skull. Isaiah felt the sharp steel of the horseshoes brush past, millimeters from killing him. He dove back and rolled, spinning away into the protective embrace of the trees. Joshua reared and stamped again, then settled himself squarely between Isaiah and his mistress. Isaiah stood. He circled past the horse and backed his way across the road, expecting the entire time that the horse would bolt and try to run him down. But Joshua held his ground, daring Isaiah to attempt a second approach to his lady fair. He did not. Isaiah got clear of the road and ran into the woods on the other side. He looked back for Black Betty once, but she was still nowhere to be seen. He turned and disappeared into the trees. The Red Maiden had been riding in silent, shame-faced fury when it happened. Her mind was elsewhere, chewing over her failure, or she might have felt it coming. First, the sudden torching of her men in the canal, then the unexpected charge of the British cavalry, which stunted the opportunity for a quick end to the one she hunted. What other unexpected hurdles would rise up in her way? She felt the anger flushing through her. All was chaos now, but that too would pass. She would hunt them all down, one at a time if she had to, and finish them soundly. She reined in Joshua and slowed him to a walk. She felt his heart thumping and his lungs heaving. She realized if she kept pressing, he would go lame, and that would only add to her list of failures. Patience of the mind was the only remedy, but she was having difficulty mastering her rage. Although her eyes had been scanning the trees, she was not in the present moment, still seized by anger at her failure. She brought Joshua to a full stop and summoned control. She looked back the way she'd come and sensed something, rather someone, hidden in the trees. She flexed her sword hand and led Joshua back around, searching for Isaiah. Then suddenly, she felt herself slipping. She lost control. As Leonie's body fell from the saddle, Gunhilda fell too, but not toward the ground, away from it. And all went black. When she came to, she felt on fire. She opened her eyes. The sun bore down hard on her back, while the sand of the desert burned her from below. The crone stood over her. She eclipsed the sun and extended her hand. "Come, child of Odin. We must have ourselves a chat." Inside the roadhouse, Gunhilda sat at the counter beside the fat man, devouring the feast the old woman had placed before her. The crone was leaning back against the still warm stove, watching with pleasure as Gunhilda consumed. "You want any more to eat, girl?" Gunhilda's mouth was full of charred rocked fisk. She nodded. The old woman smiled and cut another steak from the fish. She set it on Gunhilda's plate and stepped back. "Got to get my hands out the way, or you like to take a finger with it. Glad to see you got an appetite, but you ought to take your time. We ain't in no rush here at all. In fact, we waiting for an important arrival, so you might as well just settle in and enjoy your meal." Gunhilda nodded and dug into the fish flesh. The old woman refilled Gunhilda's water glass and set it on the counter. She stepped back and watched the Norse woman finish her meal and down the water. When the glass was empty, the old woman spoke again. "You care to tell me how things went from so terribly right to so terribly wrong this evening?" Gunhilda looked up, eyes flashing. "You had 'em on the ropes, ready to knock the poop out of 'em. But almost every single one slipped right through your fingers," said the crone. A wash of shame flowed through Gunhilda. A mother's disappointment cut worse than the sharpest blade. "Uh-oh," said the fat man, grinning. "She's playing her ace card on you." The slap was like a crack of thunder, and the fat man's cheek went bright red, the mark from the old woman's palm stretching from jowly neck to ear. "You would best keep your jibber-jabber mouth shut tight, fat man. Your pieces on the board ain't playing out as you'd have hoped, so if you in the mood for chastisement, save it for your own. There's work to be done, and it ain't getting done, and there's blame enough to go around, and I sure as hell won't have you putting all that responsibility on this girl. She did her part on Good Friday, and I reckon she'll do so again. Now zip your lips unless you want them zipped for you." The fat man clenched his jaw. "Yeah, you keep glaring at me, but you keep that goddamn mouth shut," she said. He held her gaze, then looked away. She nodded, satisfied, then turned to Gunhilda. "All right, girl. Tell me what happened." Gunhilda swallowed her shame, then she told the woman of the charge down the hill into the canal, of Ganan's leap and his triumphant spearing of Halstead, of the moment where her quarry all ran with the certainty they would not run far before death caught them too, and then of the air exploding into flame, cutting off pursuit. The old woman thought of Halstead at the gas pump and his refusal to accept his end. She shot a look at the fat man, daring him to look up from Henry Ford's insane screed against the Jewish tribe, but he did not take the bait, consciously immersing himself in the pamphlet. She looked back to Gunhilda, who was staring down at the counter, shame-faced. The old woman reached out her gnarled hand and gently lifted Gunhilda's chin until the Norse woman was looking her in the eye. "It's all right, girl. It might have felt like this was all going to be a snap when you burned Amiens to ashes, but as you well know, things don't always go to plan. Everybody gets to make their own choices, and sometimes those choices are going to monkey up the works. We get to make some choices, too." She looked up toward the front door and spoke in Latin. "Come on in, honey. You're welcome here." Gunhilda looked behind her. A man stood in the door frame, uneasy. His boiled leather breastplate with the Roman eagle carved across it was bloody and rent with cuts that bled nearly the same color as his scarlet cloak. The scabbard on his hip was empty. His undertunic was stained with dark urine below the waist. The stunned man reached out and pushed the door open. He stepped through the portal and it slammed behind him. "General Varys, as I live and breathe, don't you look a sight, sir. Lord knows you've seen better days than this one. If you come on in, I promise that you're going to see him again. You're going to be squared away right quick, believe you me. Have yourself a bite. Refresh yourself with some water. There's work needs to be done, and along with my friend Gunhilda here, I believe you're going to do it in quite the fashion," said the old woman. Oberon Jr. stood over Varys' corpse in shock. Perhaps half a minute passed. Then Oberon saw Varys' fists clench, and Varys was returning, flowing back into the corpse, pushing himself up off the ground. Oberon knelt before him as Varys regained his bearings. "You all right, General?" Varys nodded, swallowing hard. "Halt the crucifixions. My lord, halt them for now. We have a new imperative." Varys explained. Oberon understood. "Take your new body, then begin decimation. We will swell our legions with the living, that the hunt may continue after dawn. Time is of the essence," said Varys. Oberon nodded, pleased. Action beat labor any day. Though he'd been unwilling to admit it, the work of crucifixion had grown tedious. This new command was much more to his liking. Truly, the gods were good. After the old woman sent Varys on his way, with his new mission fixed clearly in his mind, she reached out and took Gunhilda's hand. "Come on along with me, girl," she said in Norse. The old woman led Gunhilda out onto the back porch to a swing hanging from the rafters. They sat together and looked out at the brutal vista, gently rocking in silence for a time. Must admit, I had higher expectations, Gunhilda. Mayhap too high. Gunhilda was silent. But now we got old General Varys in the mixture, and I'm wondering if there's any point sending you back at all. He do seem like the kind of man that can get a thing done. Gunhilda's nod was almost imperceptible. She had been impressed by Varys's bearing, envious of it. She'd spent her life fighting for everything she had. Varys had fallen headfirst into a cornucopia at birth, and from what she gathered of the conversation inside, the crone was going to provide him every resource at her disposal in his new life. Gunhilda had squandered her chance. A third of her army burned to a crisp in the canal, not half an hour after she had taken command of them. Now, as you heard inside, I'm giving over your army to Varys. Gunhilda was silent. That man's got my confidence now. He made some failures in his life, that's plain as day. But he's got more experience than you at mastering men in large numbers, and experience got to count for something, don't you think? Gunhilda could not look at the crone. Now don't you get all sour on me. I still aim to put you to use. Here's the question. You still want to keep going? It's entirely up to you. Gunhilda did not feel as though this choice was a choice. But the old woman sat and waited for her to respond. She nodded in the affirmative. Good. That's what I was hoping for. Walk with me, child. I got something to show you. Little old gift. I think you're going to like it. The crone stood and walked into the yard, past the outhouse shack and into the desert. Gunhilda followed just behind her. The sun was without mercy. Gunhilda felt her exposed skin burning, but she kept on without complaint, cresting dunes and coming down into their troughs, only to find a next wave of sand waiting. It reminded her of storms she had guided her longboat through, in constant danger of the gales taking her mast, or getting caught broadside by a wave that would capsize the longship and take them all under. In those moments, Gunhilda always recalled her mother's schooling. Her mother had been sharpening her axe while she queried her eldest child. Gunhilda, if you knew beforehand you could not die in a battle, when the fight began, which way would you run? Gunhilda at 8 knew how to answer the question. Forward. Yes, forward. And if you knew beforehand you would be killed in that battle, when the fight began, which way would you run? Forward, Gunhilda replied, grinning. Why? Her mother asked. If I am meant to die, I'm meant to die. If I am meant to live, I'm meant to live. There is no choice. I will go forward and meet my fate with my axe, whatever it be. Gunhilda's mother smiled. She had trained her daughter well. It had ingrained. There was no other way but forward. Until it got Gunhilda killed. The lesson served her well and saved her crew many times, whether battling the ocean or raiding the Irish coasts. So she moved forward now. When they reached the peak of the next wave of sand, the old woman stopped, hands on hips, and stared into the trough. Gunhilda reached her side and looked down. At the base of the trench stood a dozen men. Their long beards and braids, their leather armor and scaled mail coats, their axes, wooden shields painted with the Red Maiden's sigil. Gustafsson and Thorson, Eggleston, Colburn and Dag, and the rest of her prime raiders stood in the sand, staring up at her and the crone in shock. "Here is my gift to you, child. Your friends come running to your aid. That's what friends are for, ain't it? Due south of you, not too terrible far from where your body is laying, is a little town, burned beautifully to cinders, except for one little old church. At the top of that little church is that Irish girl and her boon companion, the big African fella. We almost had him twice now. Now it's your turn, and I'm hoping the third time is the charm. I trust it will be. Go forward now and meet your fate with your axe, whatever it be. Get you that ginger-haired girl, kill the African with her, earn the gift I'm giving you by spilling their blood." Gunhilda felt the weight of responsibility. She nodded. "Yes, I will. Remind me again, which way you gonna run in this battle?" "Forward. It's the only way." "Just so.